How to have more fun when playing support. Let's face it, most people don't really like playing support. There are various reasons for this. You're very reliant on your teammates, you cannot be the one to take a lot of kills, you're not the one to deal most damage, you're not the one to see those high numbers, and if anything goes wrong, you're most likely one of the first ones to get blamed for it. Many of these things can't really be changed. Sure, you can mute your whole team and so on, but that's not really helping all that much in the end. You're not gonna have more fun that way. That's why I made a list with 5 points how you can actually have more fun while playing support. Let's be clear here, these tips are to have more fun. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's always the optimal road to go, or that there aren't sometimes more efficient paths or items to choose. However, I feel like that in the end, if you're having fun playing the game, you're also able to perform better. If that ends up being a slight mathematical disadvantage or a matchup disadvantage, so be it. You can't have it all. In the end, I'd rather be stuck in a game that I enjoy than one that I'm slightly more likely to win, but don't enjoy at all. So let's start with the 5 tips for having more fun while playing support. Number 1. Play aggressive or unconventional supports. Obviously, if you're the true support player and you really want to help your team as best as possible, often the choice for you will be someone like Geb or Sylvanus or something like that, something that is more about assisting your team in any way possible. However, if you don't have that classic support assist mentality, you may have a lot more fun playing more aggressive supports. There are actually plenty of them in Smite, sometimes it just depends on how you build them. Among the Guardians who can actually dish out a lot of damage if played right are Ares, Athena, Bacchus, Kabrakin, Fafnir, Sobek, Xingtian, and Ymir. So you got quite a lot of them in this category already. Outside of that, there are plenty more though. For example, if you go to the Warriors, you could play a Guan Yu or maybe even a Raven support. You could play an Assassin support like Fenrir or Naja. There are no boundaries to which characters can be played as support. Sometimes they will be less effective and sometimes they will require a team comp build around that so you get a frontliner somewhere else. But in the end, all these characters have at least some slight extent of viability in the role. Depending on which guard you pick, you may get called out for not picking a true support character. But in the end, if you really don't enjoy true support characters, then you're going to be more beneficial to your team by playing something that suits your playstyle more. Something else that may not fit your playstyle could be your lane partner. And this brings us to point number 2, leaving lane. Specifically, leaving lane when it doesn't work out. Sometimes you're stuck with an ADC in duo lane that plays either way too aggressive or way too defensive for you, and you just have zero synergy in the lane. Usually, there's a certain time of the game where you should start rotating out. However, if you absolutely feel like you're not gonna work out in that lane together, or your ADC just keeps feeding you, can't do anything for him, something like that, you are free to leave that lane. If your ADC BMs you or just is a frustrating player to play with in some regard, then you're not gonna be of much use by getting tilted in lane together with this person. Instead, rotate to middle, rotate to solo, rotate towards your jungler and see if you can make something happen that may turn the game around despite of your ADC and you not really working together. This can obviously go wrong. This can lead to the ADC BMing you even further, but then just mute them and go ahead with your game. It shouldn't matter to you. Most ADCs can hold lane these days, even in a 2v1. They will still get enough XP, maybe a little more pushed on the tower, a little less gold, but that shouldn't matter to you if the end result is that you can do more on the playing field and you can have a larger impact on the game instead of sitting in that lane where nothing worked out for you. I tend to do this a lot lately. If a hunter tilts me, I'm just gonna go out of that lane. It's actually easier for support to do that than it is for the jungler, who has to stick around middle early on and can't really leech from another lane because it's not as accepted for him. So definitely go ahead and make use of that advantage when you need to. If everything is working perfectly well with your hunter, then definitely don't switch lanes, unless he needs that solo XP at a certain point of the game. Another way in which you can have a lot more fun as support is by getting Wrath. Now Wrath isn't always the optimal relic to start with. This is obvious. Sometimes there are team actives that would help you a lot more. But if you're really not feeling the support and you want to go for some fun plays, then Wrath is perfect for that. Not only can you steal objectives like Gold Fury and Fire Giant with it, or secure them better, that's the obvious part, but you can also steal buff camps from the enemy jungle. If you're smart about this, you can actually go into the first enemy red buff, if you have it warded before, and steal that with relatively low risk. Simply because you are relatively tanky in the beginning, you just steal that buff and walk out again, and put the enemy team at a major disadvantage. If the team is not completely coordinated and not expecting that, you will get out of this most of the time. You see Incon doing this a lot, for example. Not only that, it is also a relic that can be fun in team fights because it's just some CC the enemy doesn't expect out of you. Usually you have the hard CC that pretty much any Guardian has, but then after that it basically ends and you're reliant on your team to follow up. But if you have an extra CC, it may help you secure a kill or it may help your team secure a kill. And in the end, securing a kill is fun most of the time in Smite. Another way that I found myself having more fun as support is by sticking to the jungler. Now, this will drop your XP efficiency a fair bit, so if you're trying to get the maximum farm, this might be risky because you're gonna share XP with 2 people a lot. However, with the jungler together, you can set up great ganks because you're always gonna be 3 people in one lane against 1 or 2 enemies. Between your setup potential and the damage of the jungler and the laner, you're gonna have a lot of kill potential and that can really set the enemy team behind. And you're not so focused on farming or helping people anymore, but instead actually in the action. Something that has always been more fun to me. Ideally, you should not be doing that for all too long, but make sure to get farm in between as well. So you don't fall behind completely just to get some kills, unless you're able to do it that efficiently that the enemy laners are constantly falling behind. In theory, you can get farmed through assists and kills. However, most of the time it's easier to get some lane XP. After a gank, successful or not, act like a jungler and stay for at least one wave to soak up some extra XP. Number 5. Soul Reaver. Now, Soul Reaver is definitely not a great support item. It doesn't give you any stats that are actually beneficial for tanking up damage, for getting more CC off or anything like that. It's stupid raw damage. However, if your team's not doing too well, you're losing the fun in the game, you feel like your allies are not doing enough damage, and you just want to enjoy the game a little more, just go for Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver on a Guardian is stupid because it basically deals the same damage, except for the fact that the power won't help you out as much on top of it, but the true damage stays the same, and it's up quite often. And no one will expect the burst coming from a Sobek when they first see you with the item and haven't checked your item build yet. It's an expensive item and it should really only be done if you feel like there's no other way to have fun in that game anymore and you really have some defense already to tank regardless of what else is going on. I mean, sure, you could always go for a full damage build early on in the game, but if you want to have a decent chance to win, then doing that is probably not the way to go. Soul Reaver, however, can be fit in any build at any point and still have a decent effectiveness against enemy targets. I would consider this a backup last option because it really gives a disadvantage to your team most of the time, except for your niche characters like Fafnir who can actually make use of it in combination with their team. But then again, sometimes you gotta go for that niche option just to make the game enjoyable for yourself. With that, I hope these tips were helpful for you. I hope this was interesting advice to have some more fun while playing a role that you may not enjoy all that much. Thank you guys for watching. New videos every day. Duke Sloth, out.